People think answering 911 calls is nonstop chaos. It isn't. Most nights are surprisingly quiet, especially on the overnight shift. There are stretches where nothing happens. No calls, no emergencies, just silence. That's why I took the job. I had always worked nights. The schedule suited me. The pay was decent. The benefits were excellent. And unlike most people, silence never bothered me. Training lasted 6 weeks. Most of it involved learning the software, dispatch procedures, radio codes, how to stay calm while someone else was falling apart. The instructors warned us about stress, burnout, the emotional weight of hearing people on the worst day of their lives. Nobody warned me about Line 7. On my first overnight shift alone, the supervisor pointed toward the empty console beside mine. Nobody uses Line 7. I looked over. Every other phone on the dispatch floor was in constant use, but that one sat dark, disconnected, its headset neatly hung on the side. Broken? I asked. The supervisor shrugged. It rings sometimes. I laughed. So, answer it. His expression didn't change. If it rings, he paused. Come get me first. I waited for him to smile. He didn't. Then another dispatcher called his name from across the room. He walked away before I could ask another question. I figured it was some kind of tradition. Every workplace has weird jokes for new employees. I forgot about it until 2:47 in the morning. The room had gone completely quiet. Most of the city was asleep. Then a phone rang, not one of the active dispatch lines. Line 7. Its small green light blinked steadily. Once, twice, 3 times. Nobody else reacted. I looked around. Everyone continued working, typing, talking, drinking coffee. It was as though they couldn't hear it. The ringing continued. Finally, I stood, walked to the empty console, and answered. 911, what's your emergency? The line crackled. A woman whispered. You answered. Her voice shook. She sounded terrified. Ma'am, what's your location? You can't send anyone. What happened? They won't get here in time. I began typing. Tell me what's happening. A long silence followed. Then she spoke so quietly I almost missed it. It starts tomorrow. I frowned. I'm sorry? My house. She was crying now. It catches fire tomorrow evening. I stopped typing. Ma'am, I know how this sounds. Her breathing became uneven. But I'm calling from tomorrow. Every dispatcher hears strange things. People prank the system. People hallucinate. People panic. I assumed this was one of those calls. Can you tell me your address? She did, without hesitation. I entered it into the system. The address existed. Small 2-story home on the east side of town. Is anyone in immediate danger? Another pause. Then she whispered something that made the hairs on my arm stand up. My daughter is... I waited. You have 21 hours. The call disconnected. I stared at the screen. No caller ID, no callback number, no recording error. Just an ordinary 911 call. Except for one thing, the system timestamp. Instead of today's date, it displayed tomorrow's. I sat there for nearly a minute, staring at the screen. Tomorrow's date. It had to be a software glitch. I checked the call log. Every other call displayed the correct date and time. Only line 7 showed tomorrow. I printed the report. The paper showed today's date. When I looked back at the monitor, it had changed. The timestamp now matched every other call, as if nothing had happened. I rubbed my eyes. Lack of sleep. That had to be it. By the end of my shift, I'd almost convinced myself to forget about it, until the next evening. I wasn't working. I was sitting on my couch watching the local news. A breaking news alert interrupted the broadcast. Firefighters are responding to a residential structure fire on East Willow Lane. My stomach tightened. East Willow Lane. I muted the television. The reporter continued speaking. A young child has been rescued from the home, the exact street, the exact neighborhood. I grabbed the report I'd printed before leaving work. The address matched. Perfectly. The little girl survived. Her mother suffered severe burns. The fire had started at exactly 11:48 p.m. 21 hours after the call, exactly as the woman had said. The next night I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every phone ring made me jump. Every strange noise caught my attention. Around 2 in the morning, my supervisor walked by. "You look awful." I forced a smile. "Didn't sleep much." He nodded. "You answered line 7. It wasn't a question. I looked up. "You knew?" His expression darkened. "I told you to come get me first." "You never explained why." He sighed. "Because once you answer it..." He stopped. "It keeps calling." Before I could ask what that meant, a radio dispatcher called him away. Again. It felt intentional. Like everyone knew something they refused to explain. At exactly 2:47 a.m., line 7 rang. Once, twice, 3 times. My hands trembled. This time I didn't answer immediately. I watched the other dispatchers. No reaction. No one even looked toward the phone. It was as though the ringing existed only for me. Finally, I picked up. 911. "What's your emergency?" A young man answered immediately. "You have to stop him." His voice cracked with panic. "Who's trying to hurt you?" "My brother." "Where are you?" "At Miller's Bridge." I typed as quickly as I could. "What happened?" "He hasn't done it yet." My finger stopped. "What do you mean?" "Tomorrow." His breathing became ragged. "He gets drunk tomorrow night." A sob escaped him. "He drives us off the bridge." Silence filled the line. I swallowed hard. "Sir, you have to stop him before tomorrow. I need your current location." "I'm not there anymore." The sentence made no sense. "What?" "I'm calling after it happened." The line filled with static. Then he whispered something I'll never forget. "I don't think dead people are supposed to call 911. The call disconnected. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. I immediately searched the bridge cameras. Nothing unusual. Traffic flowed normally, no accidents, no stalled vehicles, no emergency activity. Everything looked perfectly ordinary. The following night, just after midnight, a drunk driver crossed the center line on Miller's Bridge. 2 vehicles went into the river. 3 people died. One of them was the man whose voice I'd heard. His name appeared on the morning news. The same name he'd given me over the phone. By the end of the week, I'd received 4 more calls. Everyone came from tomorrow. Everyone described a tragedy that hadn't happened yet. A gas explosion, a fatal hiking accident, a home invasion, a school bus crash narrowly avoided because someone happened to call in a reckless driver first. Not every future was fixed. Sometimes a warning changed things. Sometimes it didn't. But every caller had one thing in common. They all sounded exhausted, broken, as though they'd been searching desperately for someone willing to believe them. Then came the 7th call, the one that changed everything. The moment I answered, I recognized the voice immediately. It was my supervisor. Only, he sounded terrified. "Listen carefully," I frowned. "Sir, you cannot answer the next call." "What next call?" His breathing was shaky. "The one after me." I stared at the blinking monitor. "What are you talking about?" A long silence followed. Then he whispered, "Because it's you."
I stared at the phone in disbelief. "My call?" My supervisor's voice was barely audible beneath the static. "You have to trust me." "What is this?" "I don't have much time." The connection crackled. "I made the same mistake you did." "What mistake?" I answered. A chill ran through me. "You mean line 7? "No." His breathing became uneven. The next call. Before I could ask another question, the line went dead. The green light on line 7 went dark. Silence returned to the dispatch center. I looked around. Everyone else continued working as though nothing had happened. No one had noticed. No one ever noticed. For the next 20 minutes, I couldn't focus. Every ring from every phone made my heart race. Finally, my supervisor returned to the room. He looked completely normal, calm, relaxed, holding a cup of coffee. "You okay?" he asked. I stared at him. "You just called me." He frowned. "I'd been in the break room." "No, on line 7. A confused look crossed his face. "I haven't touched that phone." I searched his expression for any sign he was joking. There wasn't one. Either he was lying, or whoever had called me only sounded like him. At exactly 3:19 a.m., line 7 rang again. Just once. No repeated ringing. One sharp tone. The green light blinked. I remembered the warning. "Do not answer the next call." I folded my hands together, forced myself to look away. The phone stopped ringing. Relief washed over me. Then every computer monitor in the dispatch center flickered. Just once. Every dispatcher looked up simultaneously. The lights dimmed. Emergency backup power kicked in for less than a second. Then everything returned to normal. Nobody reacted, except me. Because line 7 had started ringing again. Louder this time, longer, more insistent. I covered my ears. No one else seemed to hear it. Finally, unable to take it any longer, I answered. 911. Silence. Then, my own voice replied. Thank God. Every muscle in my body locked. I knew that voice. It wasn't similar. It wasn't close. It was mine. Exactly mine. Even my breathing sounded identical. What? I whispered. Who is this? You. The answer came instantly. Not now. A pause. Tomorrow. I couldn't speak. The voice continued. You only have a few hours. My hands began shaking uncontrollably. If this is some kind of prank, it isn't. The voice sounded exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in days. You have to leave the dispatch center before sunrise. Why? Because that's when they arrive. They? Another long silence. When my voice finally spoke again, it was trembling. The callers. A cold knot formed in my stomach. What callers? The ones you've been talking to. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. You mean the people from tomorrow? No. The answer came immediately. They're not calling from tomorrow. The line crackled violently. Then my voice whispered, They're calling from after. After what? No answer. Instead, I heard something else. Voices. Dozens of them. Faint. Whispering over one another. Men. Women. Children. All speaking at once. All begging for help. The sound grew louder. Louder. Until my own voice shouted over them. They know you can hear them now. The lights flickered again. This time, every monitor in the room shut off. Every screen except one. The security camera covering the dispatch floor. I slowly looked up. The live feed showed the room exactly as it was. Rows of dispatchers, empty desks, me holding the phone. Except, there was one difference. On the monitor, every dispatcher had stopped working. They were all facing me, watching, not moving, not blinking. Every one of them. I looked away from the monitor. The real dispatchers were still answering calls, typing reports, completely normal. I looked back. The monitor still showed every one of them staring directly at me. Then, one by one, they smiled, and every phone in the dispatch center began to ring at once. Every phone on the dispatch floor rang at once. Not one, not two, every single line. The sound was deafening. Dispatchers around me continued typing as if nothing was happening. Not one of them reached for a receiver. Not one seemed to hear it. I looked back at the security monitor. They were still staring at me. Every one of them, smiling. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the ringing stopped. Every monitor returned to normal. The dispatchers were moving again, talking, laughing, answering calls. It was as though nothing had happened. I slowly lowered my headset. I couldn't stay here. The sun rose an hour later. My shift ended. I walked straight to my supervisor's office. He looked up from a stack of paperwork. "You look terrible. I need to ask you something." He nodded. "Go ahead." "How many people have answered line 7? His expression disappeared. For several seconds, he didn't speak. Finally, he opened a drawer. From inside, he removed a thin manila folder. No label, no markings. He placed it on the desk. "Don't take this out of the building." Inside were newspaper clippings, incident reports, old employee records. The oldest document dated back nearly 40 years. One page listed the names of overnight dispatchers. Several names had been crossed out in red ink. Beside each one was a single word: missing. I counted. 9 names, 9 dispatchers, all gone. No bodies, no resignations, simply missing. "Where did they go?" I asked quietly. My supervisor stared out the window. "No one knows." "And line 7? He looked back at me. "It wasn't always disconnected." "What do you mean?" "It used to be an active emergency line." I frowned. "So why was it taken out of service?" His answer came almost as a whisper. "Because people started calling from places we couldn't reach." He slid another document across the desk. An internal memo. Confidential. The paper described dozens of unexplained emergency calls over the years. Every caller claimed they were reporting disasters before they happened. Most were ignored. Some weren't. Several tragedies had apparently been prevented. Others happened exactly as described. At the bottom of the final page was a handwritten note. "The calls do not predict the future." I looked up. "What does that mean?" My supervisor swallowed. "They're memories." I stared at him. "Whose memories?" He hesitated, then answered. "The people who didn't survive." I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was impossible. "You're telling me dead people are calling 911? He slowly shook his head. "No." "Then what?" "I don't think they're dead." The room fell silent. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "I think they're trapped." The words settled heavily between us. "Trapped where?" His eyes drifted toward the dispatch floor. "I don't know." That evening, I couldn't shake the conversation. I returned for another overnight shift anyway. Part of me wanted to quit. Another part needed answers. At exactly 2:47 a.m., line 7 remained silent. I almost relaxed. Then another phone rang. Not line 7, my personal cell phone. The number displayed, my own. I answered slowly. Neither of us spoke at first. Finally, my own voice broke the silence. "You stayed. I need answers." A tired sigh came through the speaker. I said the same thing. My blood turned cold. "What do you mean?" "You still think there's time." "Time for what?" Static swallowed the line. When my voice returned, it sounded farther away. "They're opening the door." "What door?" No response. Instead, I heard emergency dispatch tones, sirens, people screaming, radio traffic, hundreds of voices talking over one another. Then one sentence rose above all the others. "They're coming through!" The call disconnected. At that exact moment, every emergency call on the dispatch floor stopped. Every dispatcher removed their headsets simultaneously. The room became perfectly silent. Then, in complete unison, every dispatcher slowly turned their chair toward Lane 7. The phone had started ringing again. Only this time, everyone could hear it. The ringing echoed through the dispatch center. Every dispatcher stared at Lane 7. No one moved. No one spoke. For nearly 10 seconds, the only sound in the room was the phone. Then my supervisor stood. Slowly, without taking his eyes off the blinking light, he looked at me. "Whatever happens," his voice was barely above a whisper, "don't answer it." He walked toward the phone. Halfway there, it stopped ringing. The silence felt worse. Everyone looked around as if waking from a dream. One by one, they returned to work. Conversations resumed. Keyboards clicked. Someone laughed at a joke from across the room. It was over, except it wasn't. My supervisor remained frozen beside Lane 7. His face had gone pale. "What is it?" I asked. Without looking at me, he replied, "It knows everyone can hear it now." A loud alarm suddenly sounded, not from Line 7, from the emergency dispatch system. Every monitor lit up red. Multiple incoming calls, vehicle collisions, power failures, structure fires, medical emergencies. The city map filled with flashing icons. I'd never seen so many incidents at once. Dispatchers immediately began answering calls. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Then something strange happened. Every caller described the same thing. Not the same emergency. The same person. A man standing silently nearby, watching. A woman trapped in an elevator whispered, "There's someone here with me." A driver reporting a pileup said, "He was standing in the middle of the road." An elderly man calling for an ambulance kept repeating, "He's smiling at me." Different locations, different callers, different emergencies, the same description: tall, thin, motionless, watching. Within minutes, police officers began radioing in. "Dispatch, we've got multiple reports of an unidentified male." Another officer interrupted, "We're seeing him too." A third voice came over the radio, "I've got eyes on him." The dispatcher beside me asked, "What's he doing?" The officer hesitated. "Nothing." Silence filled the radio. Then he added, "He's just standing there." Reports flooded in from every part of the city. Schools, gas stations, hospitals, apartment buildings, highways, the same figure, standing perfectly still, never threatening anyone, never speaking, only watching. Then came the message that chilled the entire room. An officer's voice cracked over the radio. "Dispatch." He sounded confused. "There are two of him." Another officer answered immediately. "No." A pause. "There are three." Within seconds, more voices joined in. "I've got 5. I can see 8. They're everywhere." The room fell silent. Even the dispatcher stopped typing. One of the supervisors pulled up the city's traffic cameras. Dozens of live feeds appeared. Every intersection, every highway, every public square. And there they were. Hundreds of identical figures, standing on sidewalks, street corners, parking lots, perfectly still, facing the cameras, watching. Then every figure moved, not walking, not running. They all raised one arm at exactly the same time and pointed toward something off camera, toward something none of us could see. The dispatch floor became eerily quiet. One by one, emergency calls stopped coming in. Not because people were safe, because no one was speaking anymore. The open phone lines transmitted only silence. Then, breathing. Hundreds of callers, all breathing, none saying a word. My supervisor slowly reached for the volume control. He turned one call up. A woman was still connected, barely audible. She whispered, "They found me." The line went dead. Another caller, a teenage boy. I shouldn't have looked. Dead. An elderly man. They're asking questions. Dead. Every line ended the same way. A terrified whisper, then silence, then disconnect. Suddenly, Lean 7 rang again. Once. Every dispatcher looked at me, not at the phone, at me. My supervisor slowly shook his head. Don't. The phone rang a second time, then a third. The display lit up. For the first time since I'd answered it, a caller ID appeared. It didn't show a phone number. It showed a location. Dispatch center. Room 104. I looked up. Room 104. That was the room we were standing in. Someone inside the dispatch center was calling 911. From tomorrow. Nobody moved. Every eye in the room shifted from the display to me. The phone continued ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. The caller ID never changed. Dispatch center, room 104, our room. My supervisor slowly stepped between me and Lean 7. Nobody touch it. The phone stopped. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then another phone rang. Not line 7. My own dispatch console. The caller ID showed the same thing. Room 104. Without thinking, I answered. 911. What's your emergency? A shaky voice replied. My name is Daniel Brooks. That was my name. My throat tightened. I know. The voice on the other end sounded terrified. I don't have much time. I looked around the room. No one else could hear this call. Everyone was staring at me, waiting. What happened? The answer came immediately. We answered. My heart began pounding. We? You and me. I don't understand. You will. A loud crash echoed through the phone. Glass shattering. People screaming. Then sirens. Lots of them. The sounds weren't coming from outside. They were coming through the call. Listen carefully, my voice said. Leave the building before 3:33. I glanced at the clock. 3:28. Why? A long pause. Then, because that's when we disappear. I slammed the headset onto the desk. We need to evacuate. The room went silent. My supervisor looked at me carefully. What did it say? It's not a prank. I pointed at the clock. We have 5 minutes. Some dispatchers exchanged nervous glances. Others looked annoyed. My supervisor studied my face. Then, to my surprise, he nodded. Everyone outside. Nobody argued. Within seconds, the dispatch floor emptied. We gathered in the parking lot across the street. The building stood completely still. Dark windows, quiet hallways, nothing unusual. 3:31, nothing. 3:32, still nothing. Someone laughed nervously. I think we're okay. Then the lights inside the dispatch center flickered. Every window flashed white. Once, twice, 3 times. At exactly 3:33, every light in the building went out. Completely. The emergency generators never started. The entire structure became silent. One of the police officers beside us radioed dispatch. No answer. Another tried. Nothing. Cell phones suddenly lost service. The city seemed to hold its breath. Then, line 7 rang. We all heard it. From outside. The phone was ringing somewhere inside the empty building. Its sound echoed through the walls. One ring, then another, then another. None of us moved. The ringing continued for almost a minute. Finally, it stopped. Power returned by sunrise. Police searched the building. Every room, every hallway, every closet. Nothing was damaged. Nothing had been stolen. Nothing appeared unusual, except for one thing. Room 104, our dispatch center. Every chair remained exactly where we'd left it. Every computer was still running. Every headset rested neatly on every desk, except mine. Mine was lying on the floor. The microphone had been crushed, as though someone had stepped on it. The technicians reviewed the security footage. At 3:33, every camera recorded the same thing. A bright white flash, exactly 4 seconds of static. Then normal video resumed. No people entering, no people leaving, nothing unusual, except for 4 missing seconds. 4 seconds nobody could explain. And according to the timestamp, those 4 seconds never existed. I resigned that morning. So did my supervisor. Neither of us ever worked emergency dispatch again. As far as we know, Line 7 was removed permanently. The room was renovated, the equipment replaced, the entire incident quietly forgotten, at least officially. But every year, on the anniversary of that night, I receive one voicemail, always at exactly 2:47 a.m., always from an unknown number. It's never longer than 10 seconds. No words, no breathing, just the sound of a phone ringing, somewhere far away, as though someone is waiting for me to answer. I never do. Last week, however, something changed. The voicemail ended with a voice I hadn't heard in years, my former supervisor. He sounded exhausted, older, defeated. He whispered only one sentence before the recording cut off. They finally answered. I still don't know who they are. But yesterday morning, I read a news article about a brand new emergency communications center opening 2 counties away. According to the article, the building features the latest technology, including a dedicated emergency overflow line. The article even included a photograph of the dispatch floor, 24 consoles, 1 supervisor's desk, and in the back corner, a single phone, separated from all the others, with a small label taped beneath it. Line 7.